Welcome. This is A Course in Miracles, Palm Beach Study Group. Tonight, we're starting Chapter 8, The Journey Back, Section 1, The Direction of Curriculum. It's on page 138 in the text. Knowledge is not the motivation for learning this course. Peace is. This is the prerequisite for knowledge, only because those who are in conflict are not peaceful, and peace is the condition of knowledge because it is the condition of the kingdom. Knowledge can be restored only when you meet its conditions. This is not a bargain made by God, who makes no bargains. It is merely the result of your misuse of his laws on behalf of an imaginary will that is not his. Knowledge is his will. If you are opposing his will, how can you have knowledge? I have told you what knowledge offers you, but perhaps you do not yet regard this as wholly desirable. If you did, you would not be so ready to throw it away when the ego asks for your allegiance. Now, this whole course was given to Helen Schucman by Jesus, and he's really talking to her, and then he's talking to us through her. So a lot of this phraseology where he's saying you, he's actually talking directly to Helen. He's commenting upon her condition. But we understand that she represents all of us. It came through her, but it's for us all. And then to go back to the very first word, knowledge. Knowledge is one of these key words, like truth is. Knowledge equates with spirit. And so knowledge equates with heaven, knowledge equates with God, because we've been told that the ego, knowledge is not of the ego. Ego thinks it knows things, but ego is just perception. It's not knowledge, because we're talking about true knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So when we understand that, it's easier to understand what we're being taught. And so he's saying, knowledge is not the motivation for learning this Course in Miracles. Peace is. In other words, we need to rejoin the kingdom of heaven in our minds. In reality, we never left the kingdom of heaven. We just think we did. That's how the ego got created. But in our minds, we need to rejoin the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is peace. And so if you are in a state of peace, you are in the kingdom. And peace is the prerequisite for knowledge, for spirit, because those who are in conflict, i.e., those who are in ego, are not peaceful. But peace is the condition of knowledge because it is the condition of the kingdom. It is the condition of spirit. Spirit is knowledge, and spirit is always in peace. Only the ego is in conflict. So knowledge can be restored when you meet this condition. By putting yourself in peace, you can rejoin the kingdom and be in spirit. And then it says, this isn't a bargain. God doesn't make bargains. This is just how it is. Okay, the misuse of his laws on behalf of an imaginary will, that's the ego. Misusing his laws in ego is not going to get you to where you need to be. So if you are opposing his will, which is peace, then how can you have knowledge? You can't know the kingdom if you're going to be opposing his will, if you're going to keep yourself in conflict. I have told you what knowledge offers you, but perhaps you do not regard this as wholly desirable. In other words, if you still want to just, live in ego world, I guess maybe you don't think that peace is wholly desirable. Because if you did, you'd not be so ready to throw it away, to throw ego away. Any questions, comments?
How could you apply this to the conflict in Russia and in the Ukraine, in the leadership?
Because all of the people who are creating this situation are working out of ego. They're obviously not working from spirit. They're working from ego. They're dedicated to ego. They're dedicated to conflict. They just don't know who they are. If they knew they were spiritual beings, they would not be perpetrating this ego conflict.
What happens for me when I speak in spirit, people come at me with ego. It's a place they don't want to go. They only hear themselves. They don't hear us all.
What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so that's typical of people who are in ego. Remember, the ego will do everything that it can to perpetrate itself. The ego doesn't want us learning the course. The ego doesn't want us applying the course. The ego feels threatened by those who apply the course. So in our dealings with the world, we try to live the course, and ego tries to sabotage us. And that's the way it is. And that's why you have to be strong. Again, Jesus is an example. They came after him and he did not resist. He just went along with them. They said this, they said that, and he said, well, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't realize that they're operating out of ego. They don't realize that there's another way, a better way, a spirit way. But that's what he came to teach them. And those who could understand what he was saying did make the change and got themselves out of ego and into spirit. And those of us who are studying the course are doing the same thing. We're just like the apostles. We're listening. to what Jesus has to say. We're listening to what Spirit is telling us. We're trying to apply that in our lives. We're doing our best to leave ego behind. And as more and more people do that, more and more people in the world will learn to do that also. But it's going to take time. You know, there's billions of people on the planet. Shall we go to number 2?
Go to number 2.
Okay. So, paragraph 2. The distinctions of the ego may seem to interfere with your learning, but the ego has no power to distract you unless you give it the power to do so. The ego's voice is an hallucination. You cannot expect it to say, I am not real. Yet you are not asked to dispel your hallucinations alone. You are merely asked to evaluate them in terms of their results to you. If you do not want them on the basis of loss of peace, they will be removed from your mind for you. So you don't have to fight the ego. Spirit will remove those thoughts for you if you are truly seeking peace. But, you know, this just relates exactly to what your question just was about the war, you know. The ego interferes with the learning, or seems to anyway. But the ego really has no power unless you give it the power. Unless you say, yes, ego, you're right. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight. If you say that, well, then you're giving ego power. And then it says, but the ego's voice is a hallucination. It's not real. And you can't expect the ego to say, oh, I'm not real. The ego's not going to say that. The ego's going to want you to believe that it is real. Paragraph 3. Every response to the ego is a call to war. And war does deprive you of peace. Yet in this war, there is no opponent. This is the reinterpretation of reality that you must make to secure peace, and the only one you need ever make. Those whom you perceive as opponents are part of your peace, which you are giving up by attacking them. How can you have what you give up? You share to have, but you do not give it up yourself. When you give up peace, you are excluding yourself from it. This is a condition so alien to the kingdom that you cannot understand the state that prevails within it. So again, peace is our inherent state, our spiritual state, the state of the kingdom. We were created in peace. So when we give up our peace, we're buying into the ego, and we're losing our peace because we gave it up. If we hold on to our peace, if we hold on to spirit, then we don't have to worry about what the ego is doing, because basically we're ignoring it. So don't let the ego deprive you of your peace. Questions, comments?
My ego or someone else's ego?
Ego. Everybody, the ego. It's not a personal thing. It is the ego. How that ego manifests in you. We're
Could
using.
you,
Go ahead.
sentence 8, this is a condition so alien to the kingdom that you cannot understand the state that prevails within it. What does that mean?
That peace is a warfare rather. Warfare is a condition so alien to spirit that you cannot understand the state that prevails within it. The state of peace that prevails within the kingdom. If you're steeped in ego and into warfare, you can't possibly understand the peace of the kingdom.
It seems so obvious to me sometimes about peace, and ego slips in and interferes with the peace.
And that's where you need to be vigilant and catch it when it's happening and reverse it. It all happens in our mind. It all depends on how you're thinking. When ego slips in and tries to rob you of your peace, and you become aware of that, that's when you need to stop, take a deep breath, and think to yourself, I am a spirit. I am at peace. I acknowledge that I am whole and innocent and forgiven and in a state of peace, and turn yourself around. Every time you do that, you'll get closer to the kingdom. You'll take one step further along the road to heaven.
In my writing this week, I use the words love and peace. I keep thinking of the Beatles. These thoughts came from doing a walking meditation with I am love, I am peace. And it turns into love and peace in my everyday life.
Good.
It's practice, but it's like coming up. I think it's coming up from loving myself.
Yes.
And I'm able to love others in the process.
Yes. Well, when you can get yourself to the state of that I'm not going to allow anyone else to rob me of my peace. So I'm talking with somebody, or somebody comes up to me or something and tries to start an argument. And I just look at them, and in my mind, I forgive them, and I refuse to argue. And they may carry on for a bit, but if I can maintain my peace, it takes two to tangle. And if you refuse, that's what conscientious objection is. I conscientiously object to getting into warfare. I'm just going to stand here and hold my peace. And eventually, then that person will just turn around and walk away because they realize that you're not going to fight with them, verbally or otherwise. Where were we? Oh, paragraph 4. Should we move on? Paragraph 4. Your past learning must have taught you the wrong things simply because it has not made you happy. On this basis alone, its value should be questioned. If learning aims at change, and that is always its purpose, you are satisfied with the changes your learning has brought you. Dissatisfaction with learning outcomes is a sign of learning failure, since it means that you did not get what you wanted. So remember, originally, this was Jesus speaking to Helen. And so, but this is Jesus speaking to us. And so, in our past learning, we must have been taught the wrong things because it's not made us happy. All of the ego stuff we learned didn't make us happy. And on this basis alone, the value of ego knowledge should be questioned. If learning aims at change, and that's always its purpose, are you satisfied with the changes your ego learning has brought you? Well, if not, dissatisfaction with learning outcomes is a sign of learning failure, since it means that you did not get what you wanted. But that's assuming that you want peace, that you want good, that you want love. I mean, if somebody says, I don't want peace, I'm very happy being miserable. Well, okay, well, that's fine with me. You can stay in your misery as long as you want. And I prefer to be at peace and in love and in forgiveness. But if you want to keep yourself steeped in ego, you got free will. That's your choice. Questions, comments?
Go ahead, Diane wants to talk.
John?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I was gonna say that I think some people are so much in a routine of being grumpy or a certain way that actually benefits, they feel it, they're so used to it, they feel it benefits them. They feel the familiarity. It's like if you're always used to eating burnt food, unburnt food doesn't taste normal. And so if you're always used to being grumpy or angry or violent or whatever, the opposite seems abnormal. And so it may not bring you peace because you're not able to adjust to something new.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And for some people, that's true. And what that means is that they're just not ready yet to advance spiritually. But sometimes that's just the way they act on the surface. But when they're alone in bed at night, they may be crying because they really do wish that it was different. But in public, they're going to put on their ego face like they've been taught to do. So, everybody's on their own path. And everybody will come into the spiritual knowledge when they're ready for it. And so that's why spirit will never force itself upon anyone. Spirit always respects everyone's free will. Spirit will offer it to you. If you don't want to take it, that's your choice. When you're ready, Spirit will be there. The offering is forever. You can take as long as you like.
That's true.
All righty then. So we're going to go on to paragraph 5. The curriculum of the atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you have established for yourself, but so is its outcome. If the outcome of yours has made you unhappy, and if you want a different one, a change in the curriculum is obviously necessary. The first change to be introduced is a change in direction. A meaningful curriculum cannot be inconsistent. If it is planned by 2 teachers, each believing in diametrically opposed ideas, it cannot be integrated. If it is carried out by these 2 teachers simultaneously, each one will merely interfere with the other. This leads to fluctuation, but not to change. The volatile have no direction. They cannot choose one because they cannot relinquish the other, even if it does not exist. Their conflicted curriculum teaches them that all directions exist and gives them no rationale for choice. So here again, let's be reminded that he's initially talking to Helen. Now, Helen was a doctor, a psychiatrist, and she was also in a teaching position. And so a lot of the vocabulary of the course is geared towards Helen's understanding, such words as curriculum and what have you. So the curriculum of the atonement, or the curriculum of the Course in Miracles, is opposite of the curriculum you have established for yourself, which is the ego's curriculum. And the outcome of yours, the ego's outcome, has made you unhappy. Helen was very unhappy. And if you want a different one, you have to change the curriculum, which is something that Helen would understand as a psychiatrist and a teacher. But the first thing you have to introduce is a change in direction. And that's what we're talking about, moving away from ego thinking and into spirit thinking. So a meaningful curriculum cannot be inconsistent. And that's one of the things about the course. The course is hundreds of pages long, both in the text and the workbook and the manual for teachers and all the hundreds, and it's very, very consistent. You can read the course over and over again, year after year after year, and it is based on oneness. It is not based on duality. You're not going to find inconsistency in this course, but you'll find plenty of it in the ego teaching. The ego thinking has all kinds of theories and that butt heads with each other and can be inconsistent. So if it is planned by two teachers, the same paragraph, sentence 5, in other words, the two teachers are ego and spirit, each believing in diametrically opposed ideas, which they are, spirit and ego are diametrically opposed. It can't be integrated. You can't try to integrate ego thoughts into spiritual thoughts, hoping to reform or resolve the ego. It doesn't work that way. You just have to walk away from ego altogether, from ego thinking. And the book has said this many times. You can't serve two masters. So that's basically what this paragraph is saying. Any questions, comments? Okay, we've got our last paragraph for this section for tonight, paragraph 6. The total senselessness of such a curriculum must be fully recognized before a real change in direction becomes possible. You cannot learn simultaneously from two teachers who are in total disagreement about everything. Their joint curriculum presents an impossible learning task. They are teaching you entirely different things in entirely different ways, which might be possible, except that both are teaching you about yourself. Your reality is unaffected by both. But if you listen to both, your mind will be split about what your reality is. Questions, comments? So, yes, David.
So in a situation like I'm a person who's listening to two different teachers and there's a conflict, I just listen and let it percolate. I don't take sides, because I believe I can often change my mind from what I hear, and then several days later I can change my mind again. I could be listening to one teacher, and then after I let it percolate, I'm believing the second teacher. But I feel that the truth will come through if I just listen and not debate about it. Stay in the peace.
I understand what you're talking about, but I'm going to say that, if you've got two different teachers, but each of them are teaching with ego, then you may change your mind back and forth. Well, one teacher saying, oh, you should do it this and this and this way, but it's an ego way. And the other teacher saying, oh, no, you should do it this way, this way, this way, but it's also an ego way. Well, okay, one ego way over the other ego way. That's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the one teacher is the ego and the other teacher is spirit. And in that case, there's a clear difference, because ego will always teach violence. Spirit will always teach truth. I mean, peace. Spirit also teaches truth, but in this example. So if that's your choice of the two different teachers between ego and spirit, I mean, you still have free will. You can choose ego violence if that's what you want to do and punch the other guy in the nose. Or you can choose spirit peace and forgive that person, turn around and walk away. So
if it's two ego people, I should just walk away.
well, if you realize that, I mean, it depends on what they're trying to teach you, you know. Again, say for example, something relating to finances. You've got one ego teacher telling you that, oh, this is the best investment for your money, to put it in this in the IRA. And the other ego teacher saying, oh no, the best thing you should do for your money is buy an annuity, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And well, okay, so neither of them are talking about a spiritual matter. And you can investigate it and see what works best for you. Should I put it in an IRA or put it in an annuity or put it in a this or put it in a that or stuff it in under my mattress? You know, I mean, does it make any difference? Well, it might make a difference in your ego existence, but that's, you know, again, not what we're talking about in this lesson. Any other comments? Diane, you have anything?
She left the room.
Oh, well, in that case, she's got nothing. Well, alrighty then. So next time we'll pick up with section 2, the difference between imprisonment and freedom. Let's enter silence, please.